All right. 15:00 sharp, at least for me it is. But hello, everyone. I'm just waiting for my co-host to join as well. There we have him, Hilge. First of all, thank you so much for joining and welcome to our webinar on learning how the most successful staffing agencies use AI in their practices. So if we move on to the next slide here, let's actually start by introducing ourselves. My name is Luca. I'm the co-host today and head of revenue here at Globus. We're very happy, as mentioned, that you could join us for what promises to be an exciting webinar. But before we get started, let's check in with my co-host and our CEO at Globus, Helge. He's joining us all the way from Mauritius, whilst I'm here in cold Copenhagen, Denmark. But what I can understand also from Helge is that you're possibly battling a cyclone, but still you're here. You're still ready to share your passion for AI. So I'm curious, Helge, how is the weather over there? Is everything okay?
Thanks for the warm welcome, Luca. Everyone, and thanks to everyone for joining. I mean, being passionate about AI, it's great to see so many interested in this topic. But yeah, it is a bit windy over here. We have a cyclone on the way, so if the electricity goes out, Luca will take you safely through the webinar. But nothing can dampen my excitement for today's webinar. Yeah, I mean, last year, just to mention that, last year was really a landmark year for Globus. 2023, the year of GPT, really changing the game within AI. And we spent the year to really harness this incredible technology. And it's set up to really supercharge every aspect of our platform.
Yeah, fully agree, Helge. And before we dive in, maybe a good idea would be to glance at our agenda for today's session. So we're going to start by discussing the top challenges staffing agencies are facing. Then we'll explore how AI can address these issues. And finally, and in my opinion, most importantly, how our very own Globus platform has evolved to solve them. So Helge, do you mind giving us, before we kind of kickstart all of this, a quick tale of how Globus began its journey?
Yeah, of course, Luca. Globus AI was born from a vision to really redefine staffing through the power of AI, artificial intelligence. And I'm not sure you're going to believe this, but back in 2018, it's a long time back, I was in a small office in Forest, Norway, with my co-founders, and we were sketching up this idea for Globus on the board. To revamp the staffing industry with AI, and we knew the potential was vast, but it required the right technology, it required the right data, and of course the right team to make it a reality. And now, 6 years later, we're finally at a place where we've realized this idea, the sketch on the board, and today we'll unveil how this looks like with Globus Recommender 2.0. So really excited about that.
Thanks, Helge. So let's tackle the big question first. What challenges are staffing agencies facing today? So we're going to go ahead and turn on to the next slide.
Yeah, so this is a picture you might feel or relate to, and especially if we turn back the pages to the early days of AI in staffing, or non-AI in staffing. It's like opening a time capsule. The staffing industry, with all its potential for innovation, was ironically trapped a bit in the past. And as we started delving into the world of recruitment, the sheer volume of manual tasks was staggering. And it was actually quite surprising, coming from a tech world, seeing all this. And recruiters, being, the real heroes here, were juggling databases, Excel sheets, and even those trusty yellow sticky notes to place candidates. It was an intricate dance of information that, frankly deserved a better stage. So in 2019, when Globus partnered up with Dedicare, one of the biggest staffing agencies in the Nordics within healthcare, we conducted a thorough business process mapping and clocked the recruiters, and you wouldn't believe it. They were tasks. Imagine that, more than half your workday consumed by tasks screaming for automation. And I think some recruiters are still experiencing this even today. And the irony was that while the potential for AI-driven automation was huge, the data and structural foundation necessary to harness it was missing. So it was clear that if we wanted to move forward, we really had to build the foundation first.
So maybe to build on that and the manual tasks that you spoke of at Dedicare, let's imagine the daily grind at a staffing agency like Innovate Staffing, where our fictional recruiter, George in this case, he navigates the complex obstacle course of placing candidates into vacancies. So George, he kicks off his day by navigating through a large pile of emails whilst simultaneously logging into several VMS portals, navigating through several different job orders. His objective? To manually key in the most relevant job orders into his CRM or his ATS, and then dive into this huge candidate pool that they have available. Sounds pretty straightforward so far. Well, not exactly, because when George tries to filter down to the perfect candidate, he often ends up with slim pickings. This is a filtered search. And a filtered search, while intended to streamline the process, it often actually ends up forcing George to miss critical skills and actually restart his search from scratch. This recruiter obstacle course is not just complex and labor intensive, but it slows down the agency's ability to place the right candidates. And as we all know, in a fast paced, high stakes world of staffing, that can often mean losing an opportunity to a competitor. So it's time for change. We envision an inevitable transition from what we like to call traditional staffing methods to a more AI-infused approach, where you leverage technology to cut through the complexity and therefore streamline your processes. So imagine a world where our friend George here, his obstacles are removed, allowing him to focus on what truly matters, which we believe is to connect the right candidates with the right opportunities and doing so efficiently and effectively.
So me and Luca talked about this, and how do we convey the message? And we coined the term 360 candidate experience. We think that really relates or explains the term, and that really represents a shift in staffing. It's about transforming how we interact, understand, and ultimately place candidates. So let me just break down the core benefits first. Activate, automate, and personalize. First off, activate. We're not just talking about filling positions. It's about igniting the full potential of your candidate pool. With a 360 view, recruiters see beyond the resumes. They understand each candidate's aspirations, capabilities, and when they're ready to make a move. And of course, recruiters have understood this before, but it's hard to do at scale with hundreds or even thousands of candidates at the same time. Next up is automate. It's about streamlining the process. By having a comprehensive system, we eliminate those manual time-consuming tasks that no one wants to do. And this means recruiters can focus on what they do best, the human connections with candidates and customers. Lastly, we have personalize. And this is where the magic really happens. Tailored communication delivered at just the right time makes every candidate feel seen and valued. It's no longer a one-size-fits-all approach, but you actually know what to serve the candidate at what time. And if we talk about impact, with one of our customers, we put together a test, and the recruiters who used AI and automation increased placement numbers from an average of 20 candidates per day to more than 60 per day. And that's not just an improvement, that's a transformation, at least in my mind. So, unveiling the full potential of a candidate is similar to unlocking a treasure chest. You need the right keys for a true 360 candidate experience. And understanding each candidate comprehensively is non-negotiable. So let's consider the data that's essential and act as the key. So first off, we have, of course, behavior and interactions. So every time a candidate opens an email, every time they accepts a job position or they click a link, every engagement, every placement, the journey tells a story, and we need to capture that to really understand the candidate. Secondly, information about the job vacancies, not just the roles, but the nuanced skill and requirements. Thirdly, recruiter and customer knowledge. There's tons of insights from those who actually connect candidates with opportunities, and that's invaluable. And lastly, the factual information about the candidates, of course, hard data found on the candidate profile, like roles, skills, experience, and certifications. But due to data quality issues, very often a lot of that is also not seen. And that's the big challenge. Much of this vital information and all of these elements remains hidden. Either it's not captured at all, or it's only known anecdotally by individual recruiters, or logged in a jumbled, unstructured format like a notes field. And until now, tapping into this data was like trying to decipher an ancient script without the key. But now we're stepping into the age of GPT, and we're really changing how this works. So by turning hidden data into visible opportunities, we really empower recruiters to see the full 360 view and make informed, precise decisions. So imagine this: each piece of data, behavioral patterns, vacancy specifics, recruiter insights, and factual candidate information, it's like a unique ingredient. Alone, they're useful, of course, but their true potential is unlocked when combined. And this is where AI steps in, acting as the master chef in the kitchen of staffing. And when you feed the AI, it will give you smart recommendations and provide context explaining why, the why behind each candidate. And this transparency is key. It turns AI into a partner that recruiters can trust and understand. And to understand why AI is much better at finding the right candidates compared to traditional methods, we need to consider the difference between filtering and sorting. So we'll get a bit into the technicalities of it.
Nice, thank you. And hopefully you guys aren't too tired of our metaphors and anecdotes. We're big fans of them, and there's plenty more to come. But to understand why AI is so much better at finding the right candidate, we've talked very high level about the problems and the end result. But let's give you guys some more concrete examples. And for that, we want to talk about the differences between filtering and sorting. It's very tangible. It's very relatable. So if we take a moment and reflect on our friend George from earlier, his experience from Innovate Staffing, you'll remember that he relied on filtered searches within a CRM to locate the right candidates. He would then specify certain criteria, like a specific location and role, expecting the system to return a perfect match. This approach, while straightforward, operates what we call a binary principle. So candidates either fit the criteria exactly or they don't appear in the result at all. So here's where we encounter a significant bottleneck. George, and indeed many other staffing agencies, manage databases with thousands of potential candidates. However, due to imperfect data inputs, such as a missing keyword or an outdated profile, valuable candidates might not actually surface through this binary filter. So this is where this concept of sorting candidates becomes relevant, as opposed to merely filtering them. By leveraging advanced technologies like vectorization and large language models, we can transform this process. So instead of a binary yes or no filter, sorting allows us instead to prioritize candidates on a spectrum. So imagine a system where George doesn't just see a few exact matches, but receives a prioritized list of candidates that he can choose from. This ranking isn't solely based on strict criteria like role and location, but instead includes a detailed analysis of each candidate profile, experiences, and even suitability for the job's nuanced requirements. And as promised metaphors, think about it like sorting a deck of cards, so that not only are the aces on top of your deck, but every card beneath it is also strategically positioned for the game you're playing, ensuring that George and other recruiters have the bestable hand for every vacancy.
That's a nice anecdote there, Luca, analogy. If we look at this with one more example, I put up this just to show you a bit how it can look like. And this is, quite realistic because a lot of the data is not clean and structured like we really wanted it to be. That's something we figured out when we started working with this. And here, you're looking for a nurse that's going to work at Karolinska Hospital in Stockholm, you might search for nurse. And with the traditional binary search method, you come across one candidate, that's what you get up in the system, who matches that criteria exactly. And at first glance, this seems very effective, but it's incredibly limiting because you won't even see candidates B and C. You'll only see candidate A. And what if you need 3 candidates for this position, you'll end up sourcing new candidates, which is expensive. So let's transition to the next slide, where the narrative changes a bit from traditional search to the more AI-centric search.
Yes. So what is AI-centric search? So hopefully I can answer that. But as you see here, suddenly we're not just looking at that one-to-one match. We're introduced to candidate B and candidate C, 2 candidates that were previously invisible under the strict confines of a binary filter. Candidate B, while not listed explicitly as nurse, is a registered nurse, a distinction that might actually have been overlooked by a simple keyword filter. Furthermore, you can see they're based in Solna, which is actually in a reasonable distance to the hospital in Stockholm. So they're still a viable candidate. Then there's also candidate C, and candidate C's role is listed as 526A, which is a clear mishap that might occur, during a data import, or actually just a simple typo from a recruiter when updating a profile. But if you take a closer look at that candidate profile and look into the notes section of that profile, there's a lot of valuable information. Candidate C is in fact a certified nurse with years of experience. They're located in Sigtuna, another area within commuting distance to Stockholm. So this illustrates not just the limitations of binary searches, but also the impact of employing sorting techniques enhanced by vectorization and large language models. So by moving beyond this rigid search parameter, we can now actually discover candidates who, while not matching the exact terms, may in fact be the perfect fit for the role.
All right. The moment we've all been waiting for has arrived, at least me and Luca, the big reveal. I know we have quite a few of our existing customers on the webinar who'll be thrilled to see this. And this is the Recommender 2.0, which will launch in the end of February now, very soon. And it's not just an update. We've been pushing updates in the background to the infrastructure for a while now. This is really a leap forward in how Globus AI enables recruiters to find and place candidates based on everything we discussed so far. Our new recommender is designed not only to recommend candidates, but also make it crystal clear to recruiters at a glance why they're the right fit. And at its heart, Globus harnesses the power of large language models like GPT, which we've all heard of by now, and we understand every layer of information about candidates in the ATS. We seamlessly integrate vacancy details from emails and VMS portals. We capture the nuanced knowledge that recruiters and customers have with all the candidate information and interactions.
And what does this all mean? It means, as we coined it earlier, a 360 candidate experience. It means automation, activation, and personalization at the recruiter's fingertips. So AI doesn't just understand the data, it understands the story behind the data. And essentially, that's the candidate. It's about making that entire staffing process as human and personal as it should be. And we truly believe that this is a direction staffing is headed in. And we're always available and ready to show you how this would actually work in a live demo, focusing on roles that are specific to your agency needs. So I think we promised also in the sign up for this webinar that we'd keep it short and sweet at 20 minutes. I think we've just managed to do that to keep it tangible and hopefully bite-sized. So as we move on to the next slide, that is literally just to, thank you all for spending the time with us today. But we're of course, more than eager to hear from you as well, whether you have questions about what we've covered, or even just thoughts on how these insights may influence your work, or even just, stories of your own experiences with AI or technology as a whole. So we'll happily stay on for the next 10 minutes, answer them if there's any. So I'm actually going to go to the chat as we speak, and we've enabled moderation, I think, by default. So do throw them in there. and then we can repeat the questions and make sure we answer them. All right, we have a question here. What are the measures of success and how do you know it's working? Do you want to take that, Helge?
Yeah, I can do that for sure. This is something we, of course, are very concerned about. We want to see value provided to our customers. So success is measured through a variety of metrics, including time to hire, reducing that, of course, increased placement rates, improved candidate job matching accuracy, and recruiter productivity, basically. So like the example I mentioned previously, what we want to see is each individual recruiter managing to place more candidates. So it's increasing the efficiency. And of course, and additionally, enhanced candidate and client satisfaction scores can be a clear indicator that we're doing something right. And we use that data to monitor. We monitor these metrics closely and ensure that our AI is actually delivering tangible value.
Great. If there's any follow-ups to that, please let us know. A few other questions just popped in as well. We have, do you think AI technologies will take over the recruiter's job? And I think if I got a penny for every time I was asked this, I'd be a rich man, or slightly richer. But yeah, so that's a great question, and I think, as always, we'd always say that no, AI is a tool. It's designed to augment the recruiter's capabilities, so not replace them. We want it to replace repetitive, time-consuming manual tasks, and instead then allow the recruiter to focus on the human aspects of the job. This is engagement, relationships, and even also strategic decision making. And these three things AI cannot replicate. They cannot take over. So the short answer is no, AI will definitely not take over the recruiter's job. Just change it.
Let me just add on one thing there, Luca, because I think recruiters using AI will replace recruiters that are not using AI. So actually getting up to speed on this technology and making sure you're using it, that will become very important. So educating yourself as a recruiter on this technology, that's certainly going to be very important.
That's a good point. And then there's a question here. Let's throw it to you, Helge, so I can just read the other questions in the meantime. What obstacles might you face during implementation? I'm guessing an implementation of a platform or an AI solution, and how would you go about overcoming them?
So there are common challenges, I guess, like with any setup, data integration, user adoption, of course. So the user, of course, has to adjust to new processes. And to overcome these, we provide a very structured implementation plan that our CS team puts up, and thorough training, ongoing support. And we work closely with your team to ensure a smooth transition and full alignment with your operational goals. Usually, we also assign super users that we train even more to really help your team internally to adopt the tool.
Great, thank you. And sorry for being a bit distant. I'm just trying to navigate through the questions.
It's
there
hard
is
both
one more.
answering and reading at the same time. Yeah.
Yeah, who would have thought?
Yeah.
There's another question here. We have 3 questions more, which we'll get to. And then, of course, if there's any new ones that come in, also throw them into the chat. But is there any risk in AI actually perpetrating any bias in recruitment? If so, how do you address that? Yes, there can be risk in that. How we address it, I can very easily answer. And AI can help actually mitigate the unconscious bias that a recruiter could have. And how we do that is actually basing our, let's say, objective recommendations based on skills and qualifications rather than subjective criteria. So we, at Globus, we consciously exclude variables like gender or name, anything that could introduce any sort of bias. But as mentioned also before, we have the recruiter in the loop. At the end of the day, it's a recruiter who decides which of the candidates from the spectrum that we offer that they decide to actually go forward with. So hopefully that answers your question. And a question for you, Helge, is your platform able to sync with all ATSs, especially with Bullhorn for Salesforce?
Yes, short answer is yes. Of course, systems like Salesforce allow you to have a lot of flexibility in how you build up your data structure. So there's always an integration process where we need to make sure that we're reading the right data. But yeah, the short answer is yes.
Perfect. And then a really good question from Joel. I haven't actually had a chance to read it. Let me just summarize it very quickly here. It's Joel, who is the question stems from his current PhD focus, investigating the holistic approaches to address inherent biases and inequalities. So it actually goes very well with, I guess, the previous question that I was able to address, hopefully. Have you entertained the idea of implementing intersectional AI parameters to uncover more of the hidden data behind these applicants? And the example that Joel is sharing here is understanding how various identity constructs may intersect to either hide and or promote certain applicants. Perhaps our criteria and or spectrum with which we construct our AI parameters are restricted by binary filters, as you mentioned, and therefore integrating intersectional AI ML approaches may unearth even more applicants.
It's a very good question. I'd love
That
to
is a very
discuss
good
this
question. Yeah,
this further.
Yeah,
And I think I could easily go down a rabbit hole in answering this, but it wasn't as easy as setting up features and using ML directly. I can tell you that when we started solving this problem, that's what we initially thought. But both because of biases and to let the recruiter understand the results, we had to combine a lot of different methods. So it's not just straightforward machine learning working in the background. We also had to, on top of that, add a lot of rules. And there's vectorization to understand text. There's features in ML with rules combined on top of it, and business rules on top of that. So it became a bit more intricate than we imagined to begin with. But yeah, I'd love to dive deeper in this with him for sure. Reach out.
Yeah,
happy to have a discussion on it.
Happy to discuss this over a cup of coffee. So definitely do reach out to us, and we'll happily continue that discussion. I think the final question before we wrap up then as well is from Christian, or Kristen, sorry. How long would you say it usually, sorry, the minuscule text for the comments, so that's why I'm leaning forward, but how long would you say it usually takes from a company starting to use Globus AI until they experience that it works and that bookings go faster and better? A company has been using Globus AI for 2 to 3 months, but still some people have experience not getting fully used to it. That's a really good question and very much tied to onboarding. And I think, Helge, do you want to take this one?
Sure. Yeah, it's very company specific because it depends so much on the recruiters, the teams, how the management sets up the change management process. So normally within 2 to 3 months, you should definitely start seeing results if you are using Globus actively. If you use it standalone, we see customers getting effects from it, the first week, while in other settings, it could take a longer time. So, it depends. Sometimes we even see that it's easy to forget the old way of working, where, if we had any issues with the application and the recruiters, had to go back to how they worked before, they're like, what? I can't even remember what I did. Like, how did I work before? So it's easy to kind of forget also about all the manual stuff that you before had to do that's now done in the background for you.
And what I would also highly recommend there is, like, what are the measures of success and defining that internally? Are there specific metrics that you want to define, and then, hold us also accountable to be able to show these metrics for you. But then also, more importantly, hold yourself accountable as a staffing agency to make sure that you're accountable for the change that needs to be implemented.
Yeah, and we're very happy to receive any feedback. So
yes,
if there is anything that's not working, we're very quick with iterating and improving the system. So happy if you reach out and tell us, anything about what might not be working properly.
And I lied. We have one more question I'm just going to quickly answer. What sort of package do you have? Is it only full-blown integration? And are we married for life, or is it something a firm can do month by month? Or do you have testing periods? A lot of good questions there. At least in Denmark, we have 50% of marriages, they end up in divorces. So you're not married for life. Yeah, it depends on the different package that you go for. We can absolutely do a testing period where you can get to see Globus in real time, get to see the value of it before you commit to a marriage. Let's put it like that. But of course, there's also a lot of investment on our side, so we need to make something that works for both parties. And we're very flexible there, so do reach out to us, and very happy to discuss how you can have that security in Globus before then also committing to it, or before marrying us. Cool. I think that's enough metaphors, analogies for today, at least on my part. But I just want to again reinstate and say thank you so much for joining. The great questions, a lot of different ones. And yeah, if you have any other questions or feedback, or want to maybe add a follow-up question to some of our answers, reach out to us. We're very easy to get a hold of. For me, at least, it's just Luca at globus.ai, Hilge at globus.ai. You can always reach directly out to us. And if there is that interest in seeing this, in a real life demo, we can do that. Just schedule a time with us, or reach out, and we'll find a time for that. All right. I think that's it, Helge, unless you had any final remarks.
No, thanks to everyone for joining. It's great having you on the webinar.
Great. All right. Thank you very much, guys. Take care. Have a lovely day.